All right, guys, got some big breaking news here for you. So the Charlie Kirk shooter has been found. It's being reported that it's 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, and I want to go ahead and walk you through what we know at this point about this guy. So first of all, let me just say, the way that they found him literally had nothing to do with law enforcement or the FBI knowing what they were doing, being competent, doing their jobs right. No, what happened was, apparently this kid told his dad that he did the shooting. His dad, I believe, is in law enforcement himself. I guess he's a sheriff or something like that. And the dad contacted the FBI. And so if the dad didn't come forward, it's very possible, if not certain, that this kid would not have been found. They were asked out. They seemingly had no leads. They were releasing all this stuff to the public, these videos of the kid like walking through parking lots and whatnot, but he was wearing a hat, he was wearing sunglasses, he looked like the world's most generic white boy you've ever seen. So I gotta say, it is very, very unlikely that they would have found this guy if this guy didn't tell his dad that he did it, and then his dad called the FBI. So really, really wild stuff. Then you had, at the FBI press conference, Kash Patel comes up and sort of does this victory lap over it. And at the end, he says, Charlie Kirk, I'll see you in Valhalla. So, okay, what? First of all, he's a Christian, right? That's like Norse pagan mythology type. Like, what are we doing here? I know it's big in like right-wing white nationalist circles, but you're the fucking FBI director. Anyway, we don't need to go down that path, but that was very strange to say the least. Okay, so here's what we know about this guy, Tyler Robinson. He's from a Mormon family. He's from the most right-wing part of Utah. As I said, his dad is a sheriff. His mom is a social worker. He lives in a big house. It's, 6 bedrooms. Hold on one sec. Let me let Stinky out. Where was I? He lives in a big house. It's a 6-bedroom house. He wore a Trump costume for Halloween in, I forget the year, but it was like he was on Trump's shoulders in, it's like the thing you wear where it looks like you're sitting on their shoulders. He received a gun kit for Christmas. And of course, he's a young white male. Now, the social media profiles of his family, I mean, it's kind of wild to go through because you see, they seem to be a very close family. They go fishing together. They do all these different things together. One recurring theme that you see all over the place on their social media is that this was as big of a gun family as you can get. Tyler was clearly introduced to guns at a very, very early age, and clearly he's a proficient shot, needless to say. And there's pictures of him with all kinds of firearms. Some of the biggest firearms I've ever seen he has pictures with. So definitely, without a doubt, from this like gun culture, there's no denying that. And now you have, I think some of the family members are scrubbing their social media of the pictures with him because, and we'll get to this later, but they're getting a lot of hate right now, and people are castigating and berating the family, even though it was the family that turned in Tyler. So now let me get into some of the specific motives. So Tyler Robinson, I'm seeing contradictory information at the moment, and that is not surprising because with a name like Tyler Robinson, there's probably like hundreds of thousands of them in this country. But some of the reporting is indicating that he's registered nonpartisan. And then some of the other reporting is indicating that he's a registered Republican. Okay, so I've seen both of these things floating across my timeline. But what we know for sure is he is not a registered Democrat. That is a fact. Okay, let's keep going. So there were inscriptions on the shooter's ammunition, Tyler Robinson's ammunition, and here's what it said. Ready? One of them said, "Notices bulge, O-W-O-O-O, what's this? Notices bulge, O-O, what's this?" So that's clearly some sexual furry type shit. Forgive my boomerdom on this particular topic, but clearly that's some weird sexual anime furry type shit, I guess. I don't know. You tell me. We have "Hey Fascist Catch" was written on other ammunition. "Oh Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow Chow Chow." And if you read this, you're gay, LMAO. If you read this, you're gay, LMAO. So clearly, the one takeaway for sure from that is internet brain rot to the max. So what other people are pointing out, by the way, is that the comments that were written on the ammunition, those appear to be references to the video game Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 is where some of that stuff written down on the ammunition comes from. Now, by the way, we should also point out, shame on the fucking Wall Street Journal. I showed you this report and I cast a doubt on it immediately, and I was right to cast doubt on it. But the Wall Street Journal reported, oh, there was trans stuff on the bullets. Well, that came from like some ATF person who gave it to Steven Crowder. Steven Crowder released it. The Wall Street Journal picked it up. It turns out that's not true at all. It wasn't true at all. And by the way, 4chan had like 3 or 4 different people that they convinced themselves, oh, this is the shooter. And most of these people that they singled out were trans, and they weren't the shooter. And so they had no problem doxing these innocent people, innocent trans people, accusing them of being the shooter, and it wasn't the shooter. Very, very disturbing stuff, and now their lives are probably fucking ruined. They're certainly going through hell at the moment, because how many people are going to think, oh, this was the shooter? And so people getting ahead of themselves with these things, that is not good, man. That is not good. All right, so I have to also point out, in 2020, there's a Tyler Robinson in St. George, Utah. Now, by the way, the suspected killer, Tyler Robinson, lives in St. George, Utah, in a suburb at that zip code. In 2020, a Tyler Robinson donated $224.48 to Donald Trump. So if you're keeping score, the attempted assassinations on Trump were done by registered Republicans, and this one was either done by a registered unaffiliated or a registered Republican who donated to Trump. This assassination of Charlie Kirk was done by this person. Unbelievable. This always happens. This always fucking happens. All right. We also have this. Apparently, this kid was an exceptionally bright student. And he had, they literally have like all of his grades and stuff up. He did great on the ACT. He had a 4.0 GPA. He's in like the worst of any of his grades, I believe, is he's in like the 96th percentile in science. That's the worst of it. Everything else, math, writing, reading, it's like 100th percentile, 99th percentile. So he is clearly very bright. I see some speculation that he might be autistic as well, but his grades were absolutely through the roof. So here's another thing I should point out, indicated by the writing on the ammunition here, is that we clearly don't know specifically what the motive was yet, but there's a lot of people saying this could be related to 76409A, and I had to learn about these groups recently, but apparently some of these groups, these are like underground online subculture groups that basically like groom young kids for violence. So 764 is this decentralized sextortion network that is ideologically aligned with basically like Satanism and, misanthropes who, are predisposed to violence anyway, and they sort of groom them to commit that violence. And there's some links to neo-Nazi stuff as well, but really the underlying thing is like Satanism. It's Satanism and sadism, I guess you could say. So it's like an underground terror network where they radicalize these young kids. And so there's some speculation that this might be linked to that. We don't know for sure yet, but that's what some of the speculation is. Now, let me give you a little bit of the before and after. The before and after MAGA reactions are really telling. So remember, we read this on the show yesterday, but there's this guy, Matt Forney, a conservative guy, who said, Charlie Kirk being assassinated is the American Reichstag fire. It's time for a complete crackdown on the left. Every Democratic politician must be arrested and the party banned under RICO. Every libtard commentator must be shut down. Stochastic terrorism, they caused this. So that's what they were saying beforehand. Here's what the right-wingers are saying afterwards. I'm not celebrating anything. This doesn't bring Charlie back. Clearly, this young man has some sort of problem, whether it be evil in his heart or mental issues. As Christians, we should pray for him, and that's what Charlie would want us to do. So when it's not a trans person, when it's not a black person, when it's not a brown person, when it's not an immigrant, all of a sudden it goes, war, we demand war and blood. It goes from that to, well, I'm going to say some prayers for him because clearly he has some issues that he needs to work through. Are you fucking kidding? These people are too predictable. These people are way too fucking predictable. So I referenced this earlier, but I wanted to bring this up again. So apparently people on social media are like threatening the family members of Tyler Robinson. And remember, the family turned him in, but they're posting stuff like murder. You can delete the post, but you can't delete your son's past. Tyler is a dead man. Disgusting, mate. Your son is going to hell and you're a disgrace. Keep deleting them. You raised a killer. Son is a piece of shit. How does a family of registered Republicans go so wrong? What a comment that one is, let me tell you. You failure of a father, trailer trash, who raised a murderer. You are garbage. You're a failed parent in person. You should be ashamed of yourself. Wow, you guys should have left Tyler in Mexico. Why you've betrayed your own son. Fucking loser. Anyway, so there's all this shit going after them. And that's kind of fucked up because they didn't do it, right? They didn't do it. I mean, you could argue, the way they raised him wasn't ideal, but how the fuck were they supposed to know he was going to be a killer? You could raise 100 kids in the exact same environment that this kid was raised in, and 99 of them wouldn't become a killer, and this one just happened to, right? So, I don't know. It's fucked up that they're targeting the family. Let me get to some of the stuff from Trump, man. So, Trump was on Fox and Friends this morning, and he was asked this question. Is the message to the right, the people that are going to go, I want revenge, not to have revenge? So Brian Kilmeade asked him that question. Trump says, you want revenge at the voter box, but unfortunately, we don't have so many ballot boxes because they have mail-in voting, which is totally rigged. So basically, Kilmeade's throwing a softball down the center of the plate to be like, hey, you're president, lower the temperature here and tell everybody everything's going to be all right and tell everybody we need to be against violence across the board. And he swings and misses. And he's like, oh, yeah, you want revenge at the ballot box, but elections are bullshit anyway because they rig them anyway. So what are you going to do? In other words, like, hey, violence, yeah, maybe violence because the elections are rigged. Unbelievable. This guy's totally fucking unfit to be president. It's ridiculous. This gets worse, by the way. So Ainsley Earnhardt said to Trump, we have radicals on the right as well. How do we fix this? By the way, again, this is rich and ironic. This was just before the name of the shooter came out. And as I just laid out for you, he's either registered unaffiliated or registered Republican, and he donated to Trump, okay? So, yet again, this one counts as a left-wing shooter, even though it's not a left-wing shooter. But anyway, all right. We have radicals on the right as well. How do we fix this country? Trump. I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less. The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime. The radicals on the left are the problem. Oh, my God. Are you fucking kidding me? We literally just had Minnesota politicians get murked by a Trump-loving, MAGA, right-wing activist whose whole career was being like this pastor and right-wing activist. And somehow, it's not, radicals on the right are not the problem. They can't be the problem. What about all the ones who commit violence? We did the numbers, and it is clear there is more right-wing violence than left-wing violence. That's not an opinion. That's a fact. And here he is saying the right-wing radicals are okay, the left-wing radicals are not. It's incredible, and it's incredibly ironic given that this shooter here is either just super fucking confused or right-wing, right? That's what the evidence shows so far. All right, more. Trump admitted, quote, I couldn't care less when pressed on how do we fix the country. That's a headline in Mediaite. You literally can't make this shit up. You can't make it up. A reporter asked, This is probably, of all the things I just gave you of Trump, this is probably the lowest of the low. Ready? So a reporter asks him, how are you holding up, sir? Trump says, let me read you the full thing. Let me read you the full thing, because I can't. This is incredible. Mr. President, my condolences to you, sir. My condolences on the loss of your friend, Charlie Kirk. How are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir? Trump says, I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty. Absolutely magnificent construction. We just started, so it'll get done very nicely. And it'll be one of the best anywhere in the world, actually. Charlie Kirk fucking bent over backwards and dedicated his life to getting this fat prick elected. And this is his reaction when asked about, hey, man, how you holding up? I know this guy who was close to you and helped your movement just got murdered. And he's like, well, the ballroom is amazing. It's really something special. what if this was Joe Biden and you had a similar situation on the left, and he responded like this would be further evidence of like, your brain is no longer functioning. It is gonzo. It is over. Like, you got to resign, dog. But he does it, and nobody's even going to fucking talk about this. Nobody's even going to talk about this. All right, so, and then we'll wrap it up on this. So, remember the same day that Charlie Kirk was assassinated, there was another shooting at a school. And the guy who did that, 16-year-old guy did that one, named Desmond Holley. He was the Colorado high school shooter. And apparently the social media accounts of that guy are littered with references to mass shootings and anti-Semitic views. So he did Holocaust denial. He also clearly idolized previous mass shooters. And then this leads to something we just talked about, which is there's something wrong in this country, bro. There's something really wrong. So the 16-year-old shooter in Colorado was radicalized by a variety of harmful online groups, the 764 group, NLM, TCC, which is a mass shooting fan club. He was obsessed with previous mass shooters like Samantha Rupnow and followed a lot of accounts connected to the satanic cult Order of Nine Angels. That was the other group that we just discussed. That was the 764 organization. And Temple of Blood. So we don't need to get into like what all of those groups are, but just know it's for like misanthropic, kids who are prone to violence, who are lost, and they basically get groomed into doing more violence. And, there's some questions about, hey, are these groups linked to foreign intelligence? Like, is this part of a plot to effectively take down the United States and lead to civil war in this country and lead to, mass slaughters on a regular basis here? And look, there's something about the online world that is just absolutely rotting people's brains and perhaps even making them violent. Because, you look at Tyler Robinson, and what a lot of people are saying is that in theory, on paper, he just looked like he was living, quote unquote, the American dream, right? He had a family that was clearly supportive of him. He did not come from extreme poverty or anything like that. He had many opportunities. His grades were good, right? He was going to college. He had all these things lined up, and he just ended up murdering Charlie Kirk. And when we try to get into the specifics as to why exactly he did it, it just gets more confusing, right? You just learn about whatever sort of weird things he wrote on the ammunition, and that's tied to a video game, and it's part of this online weird subculture, and you're like, what the fuck is this? It's just massively confusing. And I don't know, man. I honestly think that this guy being the shooter raises more questions than it answers, because you got political things that are all over the map here, right? And then that makes you think, well, I guess maybe it wasn't purely political, right? And look, I'm going to come back to this. I know everybody's saying, like, okay, case closed now, we got the guy. But I have to say, I still do not understand for the life of me. I don't get it, how you had two decoys at the shooting. You had one guy who, right after Charlie Kirk gets shot, one guy stands up and says, shoot me, it was me. He was like taking advantage, he was like taking accountability for the shooting, even though he didn't have a weapon on him and he wasn't from where the bullet came from. This old guy stands up in the crowd and starts saying, it was me, and shoot me. And his pants fucking fall down and the cops are dragging him out. And you look at that and you're like, okay, well, clearly that guy's working with the shooter because you bought the shooter time to get away, right? And then that was one guy. Then another guy had a fucking pellet gun walking around. The pellet gun looked like a real gun. Clearly that was purposeful too. So you got that going on. The person somehow gets away. And you have the reports of the planes taken off within an hour from the local airport right after the shooting. They didn't shut down the airport. I don't know. This just raises more questions than it answers to me. And by the way, the FBI was caught lying about multiple aspects of this investigation. They released a picture that they said, oh, this is the rifle that he used. It was not at all the rifle he used. The scope was on wrong. If he shot with that scope on, it would have hit himself in the eye. There's video of him jumping down from the roof. There's security camera footage of Tyler Robinson jumping down from the roof, and it doesn't look like he has the rifle with him when he jumps down, but they say they found the rifle in the woods. They also say, oh no, he disassembled the rifle, and that's why it doesn't look like he has the rifle when he jumps down from the roof. So he took the time to disassemble a rifle, which, by the way, is notoriously difficult to disassemble. It's not easy when to disassemble. It takes a while to do that. So he disassembles the rifle, gets down, and then he runs into the woods, then reassembles the rifle and leaves the rifle sitting there. What? That doesn't make any sense at all. None of that adds up whatsoever. So anybody who's been actually following the ins and outs and the specifics of what's been happening here is more confused now than anything. Everybody's going to have their little... I know the right is going to focus on the, the thing that was written on the bullets that validates their narrative. I'll pull it up here for you in a second. Oh, hey, fascist, catch. I know the right is going to focus on that. And of course, the left is going to focus on he was either registered unaffiliated or registered Republican and he donated to Trump. But this just adds more confusion to me because clearly the politics are all over the map. They're all over the place. This wasn't a trans person. This wasn't an immigrant. This wasn't a black person. This wasn't some left-wing terrorist. This was clearly some white guy from some Republican family. But ultimately, I still have more unanswered questions here because how do you explain the discrepancies? How do you explain the fact that there were 2 decoys? How do you explain the planes taking off and them not shutting down the airport? Like, I don't... this is... A lot of this stuff is just flat out not adding up, if I'm being honest with you. So, but you have, at this moment at least, people are saying it's over, and we got the guy. And again, through none of the work of the FBI at all, because they were just sat back on their asses and fucking got a phone call from the guy's dad, right? But I don't know. I guess I'd be interested to hear an interview with this kid to see exactly what the hell is going on. But look, I'll just say it. Even if he comes out and says, "Here's my motive," very clearly, it still smells funky as fuck, right? And the fact that he was able to get away, so he got all these fucking people around in this massive public event and cameras everywhere. He was able to he basically got away. If he didn't tell his dad, he wouldn't have been arrested. So very, very bizarre. But this is the information that we're getting now. So there you have it, guys. I'm going to try to come back in a little bit today and do updates on other stories because I'm way behind on all the other news because we've been covering this nonstop. So hang in there for that. And we might push off Crystal Kyle and Friends one more day because there's just so much stuff I got to get to.